Hello, my name is Anushka Nambiar and I would be continuing with the web development series brought to you by CodeKaroYaaro in association with Suvidha Foundation. Our topic for today is Bootstrap. Now, when I say Bootstrap, Bootstrap is a CSS framework which allows us to make responsive websites. Now, when I say responsive, I mean that our web page would resize itself along with the size of our device. So if you're using a smaller device, the page would size itself accordingly. Okay. So today we would be learning how to make such responsive websites using Bootstrap. Okay. So if you go, this is the official Bootstrap web page, and today we would be using Bootstrap 3. Okay. So what have I done here? I have just opened the Bootstrap official website, and here if you see, you could click on this Get Started. When you click on Get Started and you scroll down, you could see something called the Bootstrap Cdn. Now inside Bootstrap Cdn, you could see different links. Okay, so if you look at the first link here, it says link rel is equals to style sheet. So what does that mean? It means it is a CSS file, right? So let me just try copying the CSS file. I've just copied this, and for this for this workshop, I would be using VS Code as my code editor. Okay. So here in the head tag, I would be including my link. So I've just included my link here, and this is the Bootstrap CSS link. Okay. So what should I do next? Here, can you see a link which is there? So let me just open this link and check what is there in this link. I'm just clicking on this link, and let me just copy this. Let us go to our browser, paste it here and check. Yeah, here you could see lots of code. So what is this? This is the official CSS Bootstrap code. Okay. So when I am including just this one line, just this one URL in my sheet, I am actually including all the CSS by default to our page. Okay. So this is the Bootstrap CSS which we have included. Okay. Now this page I have opened that in my browser. Nothing is there. It is just an empty page, and we'll learn our concepts using this sheet. Okay. Fine. Now, Bootstrap revolves around the concepts of containers and grid system. So now let us look at CSS containers and grid system in detail. Okay. So first thing what I want to do is I will make a div, and then I will give it a class. My class for this container, so this div would be container. I have given a div with class container. Okay, and inside this I am making a row. Now in this row, if I give an h1, suppose my text is 1. Okay, I have made a container here. I have given a row for that container, and then I have given an h1. Okay, so in this I would also include bg danger. We'll talk about what this is later. So let us just first see what does this give me. If I go refresh here, you could see we have an h1 tag which is 1 written in our box. Now if you look at the box properly, you could see there is some space to either of the sides which is remaining, right? So what is this space? This space is the default margin and padding which would be applied if we are using Bootstrap containers. Okay, so this is when you use containers, by default some margin and padding would be applied. So this is that. Now if you don't want this default margin and padding and you want to use the whole width of your screen, so that time what would you do? You would just simply change this container to container fluid. So when I include container fluid class, let's see what is happening. If I refresh, you could see we have used the complete width of our screen for our row, right? So that is the difference between a container and a container fluid. A container would have by default margin and padding, and container fluid allows us to use the complete width of our page. Okay, yeah. Now the next thing which comes in is the CSS grid system. Now if I want to divide my page into two columns, I would write col MD6, and then let me make a similar column. I will explain what this is in a few moments. And here I am giving an H1 which says 1, and here I am giving an H1 which says 2. Okay, if I go check my page, you could see my page has been divided into two columns, one with the H1 1 and the other one with the H1 2. Similarly, if I want to divide my page into 3, okay, I will make a row first, and in that row class I will give col MD4. Okay, let me make two more such columns. I've made 1 and 2. Now here I will give an H1 1. Here I would give an H1 which says 2, and my third H1 would say 3. Okay, let me format this. Now if you go refresh, you could see we have 3 columns. Now how did I do this? That is the next question. If you look carefully, I have used something called col MD6 here. So what is this MD? This col stands for column. Okay, so what is this MD? This MD is the size of your device. Okay, so if you're using a small device, instead of MD you could use SM. Now if your device is extra small, you could use XS. Okay, for larger devices you could use LG. So for now I am using MD. Okay, for a medium sized device. Now next question arises, what is this 6? This 6 here specifies the number of columns. So by default in Bootstrap we could use 12 columns. Okay, in Bootstrap our whole web page is divided into 12 individual columns. Now we could use these 12 columns to make and style our elements. Okay, so what does this col MD6 tell? This col MD6 says you have to include the first 6 columns for this H1 which says 1, and similarly you have to include the next 6 columns to this H1 which says 2. Okay, now coming to the next row, I've written col MD4. So what is that specifying? It is specifying you have to use the first 4 columns for the H1 which says 1, next 4 columns for the H1 which says 2, and the last 4 columns for the H1 which says 3. Okay, so here if you check, 6 plus 6 is 12 columns. Again 4 plus 4 plus 4 is also 12 columns. So we are using the entire 12 columns which is provided by Bootstrap. Okay, now one question arises, is it compulsory to use all the 12 columns? No, it's not. Suppose I am making another row here and I want to use the first 2 columns. So what will I do? I will use col MD2. Okay, I've used the first 2 columns and I will give an H1 which says 1. And I want to use the next 4 columns only. So for that what will I give? Just col MD4. And then here I am just giving an H1 2. Okay, so if I refresh it here, you could see my first 2 columns have been used by the H1 1, and the next 4 columns have been used by the H1 which has the text 2 in it. Okay, so 2 plus 4, we have used only 6 columns in this row. So this is the CSS grid system. Okay, as in CSS grid system we could divide our whole page into 12 different columns. Okay, now after you understand CSS grid system, let us look at some components which we could use in Bootstrap. Okay, so let me just remove whatever code we have written till now. Yeah, I've removed all the code. If I go refresh here, you get a blank screen. Okay, yeah. Now the first component I want to talk about in Bootstrap are the different image classes which are available. Okay, so how do you include an image in in HTML? We use the image tag, right? So I'm just using the image tag, that is img tag, and this is the source of my image. Okay, so I'm just copying this source and I will put it in my source here, and let me just make this size a little smaller. Fine. So this is my image. If I go refresh in my browser, yeah, you could see I have my image which is loaded here. Okay. Now in Bootstrap, we have different image classes which are available. Okay, there are three image classes. The first one is image rounded, second is image circle, and third is image thumbnail. Okay, so let us just include one by one and check each. So here in the image tag, I am just going to give class is equals to image. First one, what did I say? Image rounded. So I have given class is equals to image rounded. Now if I go refresh here, you could see our image has rounded borders. Let me just zoom in so that you could see. Here our image has rounded borders. Sorry, not borders, corners. Okay. So this is the first class, image rounded. Now the next image class is image circle. So let me just copy this same image code and I'll use it. Yeah, I've copied it. Now I'm changing the image rounded class to image circle class. I've just used image circle class. Now if I refresh, you could see this, the first one what we have is image rounded class, that is with rounded corners, and image circle class, that is we are changing our whole image into a circle. Okay, so these are the first two image classes. Next thing what we have is, I will change this class to image thumbnail. Yeah, I have included the image thumbnail class. Now if I refresh, you could see, if I zoom in a little bit, you could see there is some border which has been applied to the image, right? So this is the image thumbnail class which is available in Bootstrap. Okay, yeah. Now after you've learned all the three image classes, let us look at something called alerts. Okay, so for that what I'll do is, let me just give it a container first. Why am I giving a container? So that all my elements look neat. It comes inside a container and it has some margin and padding. Okay, so I've given a class container. Now inside this container I am making a div, and inside this div I am just giving a text alert. Okay, now to this div I am giving class is equals to alert and alert success. Okay, now if I refresh, you could see we have an alert here which is green in color. Now how green? Let's see. This is the official documentation of Bootstrap which I am opening, and here you could see that different colors are associated with different words. Okay, so in Bootstrap, primary stands for blue, secondary is for gray, success is for green, danger is for red, and warning is for yellow. Okay, so what have I given here in the code? I have written alert success. So what does success stand for? Success stands for green, and that is why we have got a green color alert here. So how do you include alerts in Bootstrap? You just include the class alert and then alert hyphen the color which you want to specify. If it is red, you will specify danger. If it is yellow, you specify warning. Okay, if I want to change this alert to yellow color, what will I do? I'll just simply remove the success and I will change to warning, because warning is for yellow. If I refresh, you could see our alert has changed to yellow color. Okay, so this is the alert boxes. Then next we have buttons. For including button, I'm just using a simple button tag, and inside that I'm giving maybe a text submit. Okay, I've just given a random text submit here. Now to this button tag, I am applying a class btn, that is the button class, followed by btn primary or any color you want. So what have I done here? btn is the button class and btn primary. Primary stands for blue. So this, what can we expect from here? We could expect a blue color button, right? Let's see, if I refresh, you could see a blue color button which has appeared here. So this is how you include buttons in Bootstrap. You have to include the class btn followed by btn hyphen the color what you want to include. Okay. Now after this, we have a very unique concept called glyphicons. Now what are glyphicons? For that, let's see an example. If I have a div which says mail me, okay, I just have a div and it has some text mail me. If I go refresh here, just plain text is displayed, nothing new. But to make this a little interesting, we could give an icon before this mail me, right? So that would make it look more interesting. So for that, we would use something called glyphicons. Okay, so I'm going to my code editor, and in this div, I am giving a class glyphicon, and then I am specifying which glyphicon to use. Suppose I want envelope, so I have given class glyphicon envelope. So if I refresh here, you could see an envelope icon has appeared before mail me. Okay, so if I want to use a camera glyphicon, so I'm just simply removing the glyphicon name, that is envelope, and writing camera. So if I refresh, you could see a camera icon has appeared. So this is how you use glyphicon. Okay, so for using glyphicon, you just have to include the glyphicon class followed by the glyphicon name. Okay. Next, an important component what we use is progress bars. Now for including progress bars, the first thing what you have to include is a div with the class progress. So here I have included a div with the class progress. Okay. Now inside this div, you have to make another div with the class progress bar. So here I have given a div with the class progress bar. Okay. Now inside this div, I am just writing the value which needs to be displayed on the div, that is 80%. Okay. Now if you go check here, you will just see an empty bar with nothing inside this. Okay. Yeah. Now we have to specify what is the role of this. So the role of this is of a progress bar, right? So I'm just writing role is equals to progress bar. Then I have to specify the value which is it is having now. What is the value? It is 80, right? So value now would be 80. Then since it is a bar, you have the lower value and the upper value. So you're just specifying the value minimum, that is 0, and then you also have to specify the value maximum. I am writing value max, that is 100. Okay, and also you have to apply a style which would be width is 80%. In this case I have to display 80%, so I am giving width is 80%. So now let us just go check. You could see a progress bar with 80% of its length covered. Okay, so if I want to change it to 60%, what will I do? I'll just simply change the width. I'll change the value now here, and then I can also change the text inside, which is to 60. If I refresh, you could see our progress bar has changed to 60%. Okay, so this is all about progress bars. Another component what we use is called panels. Now for including panels, let's just make a div first, and to this div I am giving class is equals to panel. Okay, so I made a div, and in that I have specified class is equals to panel. If I go refresh, you wouldn't find any change. Okay, yeah. Now inside this div, I am making another div which has class is equals to panel heading. I've just given a class is equals to panel heading to the div inside our class panel. Okay, and here I'm just giving a text heading. Now if you go refresh, you could see we have a box here which says heading. So this is a panel heading. Let us also give a panel body, then we'll check. So now I'm making another div, and this div will have the class panel body. So this would be the body of our panel and it would say body. Okay, if I refresh, what happened? Let us check panel body. Let's try again. I'm removing this. Then I am giving the panel body class. Here I've given panel body class. In this I am giving a text which says body. If I refresh, yeah, I don't have to give h1. Let me just remove this h1 from here. If I refresh, you could see our panel has a panel body. Okay, now see, it is very plain, right? You can't even see the panels properly. So for that, let me just include a color here. So I'm just adding panel default. Now panel default would give it what? A white, gray, some background of that sort. Okay, very fresh. You could see here. Here our heading has a gray background and then body has a white background. So I just had included this panel default class here. Okay, and panel heading class is for the heading of the panel. Panel body class is for the body of the panel. Okay, and lastly, if I want to give the footer to the panel, so what can we use? We could use the panel footer class. I have just used panel footer, and in that I am writing the text footer. Now if I refresh, you could see our panel has a footer now. So first we include a div which has class panel and panel default to give it some styling, and then we have divs which has the classes panel heading, panel body and panel footer to design this panel. Okay, yeah. So after panels, the next very important component which we come forth is forms. Now in Bootstrap, forms have three layouts. One is vertical, horizontal and inline. Now vertical is the default layout what Bootstrap provides. We could also change it later on. Okay, yeah. So basically when you use forms, what you do is you wrap the div in which you're writing the form using the form group class, and then if you have some input or select or text area tags, you could use the form control tag here. That is what we are going to do when you're using forms. Okay, so let us just create a simple form and check. So I'm using a form tag first, and yeah, here I have to give class is equals to form group, right? Or you could give this inside another div. So I'm just removing here, and then here I am going to give a div form group. Okay, I have a div with class form group, and inside this I want a label first, label for email, and my text would be email. I'm just writing the text email here, and I am going to use an input. Okay, input of type email. And what did I say? For input we have to use the form control, right? So I'm using class is equals to form control here. Okay, let us just go refresh and see in my page. Here you could see we have a label which says email, and then we have our input box. So similarly, if I want to make for password, what will I do? I'll just simply use the same code for pwd for password, and I'll change this text to password, type is password, and since it is input, we are using classes form control. So if I refresh, you could again see a password label with an input box. Okay, so this is about forms. Now the last element what we would look at is tables. Now for tables we use the table tag normally, right? So I'll just include the table tag first, and I am going to say that my table belongs to the class table. So I have just used a table tag and I have given class table to this. Okay. Now inside this I will be giving a row first and then a table heading. Suppose let it be heading 1. Heading 1, and my next heading should be heading 2. I have given table headings heading 1 and heading 2. Okay, and I am creating another row here which has the data content 1 and another data td which says content 2. Okay, so if I go check this in my browser, you could see I have a table here with heading 1 and heading 2, and my data is content 1 and content 2. Now this is a table without borders, right? So if I want to include borders in my table, I could include another class table bordered. I've included the table bordered class here. Now if I refresh, you could see our table has been enclosed in a box or a bordered, it has become a bordered table. Okay, so these are some basic components which you could use while using Bootstrap. Now after you've learned components, let us try using this practically. Okay, so in the previous few days you had made this page using HTML and CSS, right? So if I scroll down, you have this feedback option. When I click on this, you also have made this feedback form, right? So let us try beautifying this a little more using Bootstrap. Okay, so let this page be here just for reference, and then we will code simultaneously in our editor. Okay, so for making a new page, I am taking a new HTML sheet which is index.html, and for external styles, let me just take a sheet style.css. Okay, now this in the HTML sheet, I'm doing nothing. I'm just loading the basic HTML template which is there in VS Code, the editor I'm using, and I'm changing the title to portfolio. Nothing I've done so far. Okay, and then let us link this sheet also, this external style sheet, and it says style.css, right? Okay, then the next thing what we have to do is we have to include the next thing what we have to do is we have to include the CSS of the Bootstrap, right? So here I have already included the CSS Bootstrap, so I'm just copying this and then I will use this as the same thing in my index.html. Okay, I've just pasted it here, and yeah, that's it. Now if I open my portfolio, here I have opened the index.html. Nothing is there because I have not added any content inside. Okay, yeah. Now let us explore our page which is already created one by one. In the header section, we have an image and some content, right? So let us just make it a little more attractive using Bootstrap. So for that, let me take a header first. I'm taking a header tag, and in this header tag, I am going to use a container class. Why am I using a container? So that it could have the default margin and padding, right? So I've used a container class, and in the container you have to use rows. So I'm using a row also. Okay. Now I want the first 3 columns of my row to have the image. So when I say first 3 columns, what should we use? We have to use call md3. First 3 rows. Okay, so call md3 would include the first 3 columns of my page. Would use the first 3 columns of my row. So I've included that. And inside this, what should I use? I have to use my image, right? So for image, I'm just using the img tag, and here I have the existing code. So here if you check, this is the image what you have used. So I'm just taking that same image and I am pasting it here. Okay, so let me just change the size of the image. Let me make it a little smaller. So I'm using height 200 pixels and width also I am using 200 pixels. Okay, if I go to my portfolio and refresh, you could see our image with size 200 by 200 is present after giving a certain spacing here, because we have included this as a container, right? Okay. Now, if you see in our original page, this image is in a circle. So this could be done in Bootstrap using what? We could use class is equals to img circle. Okay, if I use class is equals to img circle, let's see what is happening. If I refresh, you could see my image has been enclosed in a circle. Okay, yeah. Now I have used the first 3 columns here, right? So how many columns remaining? I have 9 columns. Total 12 columns, I've used 3. So 9 columns are remaining. So let me use the remaining 9 columns. Call md9. In these remaining 9 columns, I have to write the information, this information, right? That is to be displayed in the remaining 9 columns. So for that, let me just give an h1 tag for writing the name, that is Devang Gupta. I've written the name, and then I would use an h4 or maybe an h5 for his designation, that is a web developer. Okay, I've written web developer, and then I would want to give a paragraph. So that is I'm using lorem ipsum with 30. Okay, if I refresh, you could see we have the name, we have the designation, and then we have some content after this. Okay, now this is looking a little plain, right? So let us just add some more external CSS to make a bit more better. So for that, to my header, I am going to add a class heading. I've just added a class heading, and then I am opening my style.css sheet. Then I'm using my class selector, then the class name, that is heading, and first thing what I'll do is I'll give a background color of RGB, say 70, 172 and 70. Okay, if I go refresh my page here, you could see a green color background has appeared in our header, right? Okay, now since there is no spacing between the image and the top of the screen, let us just give it some padding. So I would like to give a padding of 20 pixels, and also let's change the text color. So I want to change it to white. Okay, if I refresh, yeah, it is looking much better. Yeah, so here after the name and designation, if I want a line which is separating that from the paragraph, how can I use that? Maybe let us go to index.html, and here in my para, I have given an id is equals to para. Okay, it's just one element, right? So for making it unique, I have given an id para to my paragraph. Okay, now in this CSS, I would write the id selector, that is the hash, followed by the id name, which is para, and then here I would give border top is 3 pixels solid white. So what will this do? This would include a border on top of my para. If I refresh, you could see a line has appeared on top of my paragraph. Okay, so now my header looks quite good. Let us explore what else is there in our original page. If I scroll down, I could see different social media links here, right? So can we not include this in our nav bar? Let's try doing that. So yeah, for including it in my nav bar, I am going to use the nav tag, and as usual for Bootstrap I have to use containers. Inside containers I have to use a row. Fine. Now let's see how many links are there. We have Instagram, Facebook and mail. So we have 3 links. Now total our page is divided into 12 columns. We have 3 links each. So 12 divided by 3. So we could use 4 columns for each link. Okay. So that is why I would use col MD4 for each. So I am making 2 more links. Okay. 1 and 2. Yeah. So here col MD4 would specify use the first 4 columns. This would specify use the next 4 columns. And the last one would be to add the last 4 columns. Okay. Now to include links, you had learned that we have to use the anchor tag or A, right? So I've used the anchor tag, and in the official, in the original code, here you could see we have the link to the Instagram handle. So I'm just copying that, and then I'll just go paste it here. Okay. And I would also add the text Instagram. I've added the text Instagram. If I go refresh, you could see our link has been added here. Okay. Similarly, we could use the same anchor tag for Facebook and mail also. So Facebook, since we don't have a link, I'm leaving it blank, and then I'm just changing the text to Facebook. And here in the code, I have mail to and the mail ID. I will copy that and I am going to put it here. Then I will change this text to email. Okay. Yeah. So if I now go and check my website, I have Facebook and email links also. Okay. Now this nav bar, wouldn't it look much better if Facebook is aligned to the center and email is aligned to the right side? So wouldn't the alignment look a little better? So how can I do that using Bootstrap? We could use the class text center. So when you use the class text center, the text would be aligned to the center. Same way, I want this text to be aligned to the right. So I would be using the class text right. Okay. If I refresh it here, you could see our Facebook has gone to the center and email has gone to the right. Okay. Now this is looking much better. Now let us include a background color to this. To include a background color, I am going to add a class, a nav class, to include it in our external CSS. Okay, so I am using a class selector with the class nav, and then I am going to add my background color, which would be RGBA, say 145, 139, 139 and 0.72. Okay, if I refresh, you could see a color has appeared. Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, now I want my what should we do next? We want a padding also to this, right? So for that, let me just include a padding of 10 pixels. If I refresh, isn't it looking much better? Yeah. Next thing, this Instagram, Facebook, email. So this is looking good now, but wouldn't it look much more attractive if we had icons in front of them? So how will we do that? In Bootstrap, I had told you we use glyphicons, right? So let me go to our index.html, and here before Instagram, I am going to include glyphicon, and say we could use the camera glyphicon. If I refresh, you could see our camera glyphicon has appeared before Instagram. Okay, so same way, let me just include glyphicons for Facebook also. For Facebook, maybe let's include the send glyphicon. I've included the send glyphicon. And then for email, which glyphicon can we use? Maybe the envelope glyphicon. I've used glyphicon envelope. Okay. If I refresh, you could see Facebook and email also has their glyphicons. Okay. Now with this background color, this text color doesn't look so good, right? So let's change that also. So where have I given this text? I have given this text in the anchor tag of the nav class. So I have to apply style to dot nav and then anchor, the anchor tag of nav class. So this I am going to give the color of the text as white. Then my font size, let me just increase the font size to 20 pixels, and my font weight, I want it to be bold. Okay, so now if I go refresh, this navbar is looking much better, right? Okay, let us explore this page again. What else do we have? We have this about myself section, then we have this my achievement section and my family section. What creative can we do with this? Yeah, maybe you could use points or lists to include that, right? Okay, so let me just make a div with the class container. Okay, I've just made a div with class container, and in this I am going to give a row. Like usually whenever we make a div, we give a row, right? So I have made a row here, a div with class row, and inside this I am going to give an h2 which says about me. Okay, so if I refresh this page, you will just see an h2 which says about me. Okay, nothing else we have done. Okay, now after this I told you we will include lists. Now for lists also we have two types, ordered list, unordered list. For now let us use the unordered list or UL. So I've included UL, and inside that my first li. Now inside my li I want an h4 which would be a random text. I'm giving a lorem 10, and then I want a paragraph of lorem 30. Okay, if I refresh, you could see I have a point. This is my h4, and then I have a paragraph. Okay, yeah. Now if I want two more such points, what will I do? I'll just simply reuse this code, right? So I'm just copying this, pasting it once and twice. Refresh. See, 1, 2, 3 points have been included. Okay, now in this also we could add some CSS to make it look better, right? So for that, what I'll do is in this h2 I am going to give a class alert and then alert success. So what does success do? Success would include the color green. So let us see if something has happened. If I refresh, you could see we have an h2 which has become an alert with green color because we have included the word success, right? Okay, now next thing what I want to do is I want to change the color of this h4 to blue. Now when I say blue, what should come to your mind? Primary. So I will just add class is equals to text primary here. Okay, when I add classes text primary, you could see our first link has become blue in color. Okay, so similarly let me just change the h4 for the others. I'm copying this class text primary, and then I will give it in the same thing for the other h4 also. If I refresh, see the about me section is ready. Now I want to use the same, like we have the next section, right? My achievements and my family. I want these two sections also to look identical to my about me, or I want it to be exactly same. So for that I am going to use the same code again. Okay, so just to differentiate between the two sections, I am giving a HR would be a horizontal line, and then I am going to use this same code. I've copied this and then I have pasted it here, and then I'm just going to change this text about me to my achievements. I've changed it to my achievements. If I refresh, you could see I have a next section after this line. I have this next section which says my achievements. Okay, similarly we have another one, right? My family. So same thing I will do. I'll just give an HR, that is a horizontal line, and then I will write the same code, and instead of about me I am changing it to my family. If I refresh here, you could see I have a section here which says my family. Fine? Okay. Now, after we've included all these three, can we not make another section which showcases our skills? Now there, what concept can we use? Whenever we are showcasing our skills, we could use it as a progress bar, right? Yeah, so what will I do? I'll just, after my family, I'm just going to give a line, and then I will make another container. I've used a container class, and inside my container class I am going to give a row, and inside that row I am going to give an h2 which says my skills, and this h2 would have class is equals to alert and alert success. Just to give it green color, let us just go see what has happened. Yeah, here you could see a heading, h2 a heading with alert and alert success class. Okay, yeah. Now after this, I want my next row to have a text followed by the percentage or the process bar. Okay, sorry, progress bar. Okay, so I want my first two columns to have the text. Now when I say first two columns, what did I say? We have to include col md2, that is the first two columns. Now what will that have? That will have the text. So I will say html. Now if I go and refresh here, you could see I have the h4 in the first two columns which says html. Okay, now rest we've used 2, so now we have 10 more columns remaining. Now in that 10 I want to use just 6 of them. Okay, so I'm just using col md6 just to use the next 6 columns. Now to include progress bar, what did I tell you? What all should we include? We have to include a div with the class progress, and then another div with the class progress bar. Okay, and inside that you have to mention the content which is to be displayed on the progress bar, that is 80%. Okay, now here what you have to specify, you have to specify the role is of a progress bar, then you have to specify the value. Now what is the value here? It is 80, so I'm writing 80, and then I have to specify the minimum value, that is 0, and then I have to specify my maximum value, that is 100, and then also use style with this what 80%, right? Okay, so we had learned this before, so let's see if our progress bar is included. Yes, here we have a progress bar which shows 80%. Okay, so similarly, let me make another row. So it is the same code, that is why I'm copying it and using the same thing, and I will change HTML to CSS. Okay, and then I want it to be 60%. Let it be 60% here. This value is also 60, and the value now is also 60. If I refresh, you could see CSS has 60%. Okay, and last one more such row we'll make, copying the same thing. I'll use it again, and this time instead of CSS I'm going to write Bootstrap. Now since we've learned Bootstrap well, I'll take it as 90%. Okay, width is also 90% and value now is also 90%. If I refresh, you could see our Bootstrap also has 90% of our progress bar. Okay, yeah. Now after this, what else can we do? I'll just give a horizontal line like we do every time, and after this horizontal line, let's go back to our original page and check what else is missing. We have not included this table, right? So let's just include this table also in our page. For including tables, what did I tell you? We have to make a container first. I'm using a container, and inside that I'm using a table tag, and here I am going to give class is equals to table. Okay, and inside that I will use my first row. There I'll specify the table heading. First one would be here, My second one, let it be class, and the third one, it could be grade. Okay, yeah, and then I am creating two more rows. First one would have the data 2017, then next one would be 10th, and last one TD would be 10 CGPA. Similarly, I will make another row which has TD, it would be 2019. Then next one I would have say 12th, and last we have a TD which says 10 CGPA. Okay, yeah. So now if I go and check in my page, our table is included, but this tables don't have a border. Why so? Because we have not included the table bordered class, right? So I'm just including the table bordered class. Now if I refresh, our table will have a border. Now if I want to give a background to the heading alone, I could just simply do that by adding a class is equals to bg success. Now what is the success? Success will make it green, right? If I refresh, you could see this row has green color, right? Okay. Now after this, in my original page, what else is remaining? Just this feedback link, right? So for this feedback link, I am going to make it as a button here. Okay, so let me give a horizontal line as usual, and then I will make a button. I'll make a button which says feedback. Okay, and here in my button I'm going to give class is equals to btn because it's a button, and then button success because I want the button to be green in color. If I refresh, here is my button. Okay, let us bring it to the center and also add link. Now when you want to add link, what do you use? You use the anchor tag, right? So I am also going to use the anchor tag. Now href. Now when I click on this, it has to open my feedback form which we will be coding, right? So for the feedback form, what I will do is, let me make a new page here, form.html, which will have the HTML for my form. Okay, and I'm linking this form.html to my index.html. So how will I do that? I'll just simply write href is equals to form.html. Okay, and now I will close this anchor tag after my button. Okay, now I want this to align to the center, so I will use the center tag of HTML and just put it here, and after this I also want a break. Now if I refresh, you could see a button has come to the center, and when we click on this, form.html will open. Okay, yeah, so this is how you redesign your home page. So we've just made this home page into this. We have made it more attractive using Bootstrap classes, right? And grid system. Okay, so now let us redesign the feedback page. So this is the feedback page. So what will I do in this form.html? I will include the existing code. So this is the existing form code. Okay, so I'm just using the same code first, and also we have to make a CSS file for storing the external CSS for this, right? So CSS, this form.css, that is the original one, I'm just copying it into my new file. Okay, yeah. Now we are going to use Bootstrap. So whenever we have to use Bootstrap CSS, what should we do? We have to include the Bootstrap link, right? So we have already included that in our index.html. This is the Bootstrap link. So I'm copying that, and then I will include it in my page here. Okay, so before that, I will just open my form. So this is what my form is looking like right now. And in my body, I would just give an inline style which says style is equals to background color purple. I've just given background color purple to my page. Okay, so after I included the Bootstrap link, my form has changed to this form. Okay. Now let us add the various Bootstrap classes to each of these elements to make it look much better. Okay. So let's just analyze this. Here nothing to add, now form. I told you whenever we are using form, we have to give some form class, right? So here I would give form inline class. Okay. I've given the class form inline here and nothing much change would be there. Similarly, for input also, I am giving the class form inline. I've given the class form inline here, and for the next input also, I have given class is equals to form inline. Okay, if I refresh, you wouldn't find much of a difference. It is all the more same. Now next we have input type is equals to radio. So for radio, I could include class is equals to radio here. Okay. Similarly, in the next one also, I am going to add class is equals to radio. Again, if I refresh, just a minor change, you wouldn't find much of a difference. Now, if you scroll down, you will find type checkbox. Now for checkbox, we have the class checkbox inline. Okay. Now if I refresh this, you will find there is a slight change, right? So I will be adding the same class to all the other checkboxes as well. Okay. I'm just using the multi-cursor property of VS Code here. Yeah. If I refresh, you could see our rating has changed. Our styling for the checkboxes have changed. Okay. If I scroll down, now next thing what I see here is a select. Now for select, I am going to use class is equals to form control. Okay. I told you whenever we have select, we have to use class is equals to form control. So I have used class is equals to form control here. And then if I refresh, you could see the design for this select option has changed. Similarly, we have a text area here, and here also when I include class is equals to form control and then I refresh, our styling has changed, right? Okay, now let us just look down. Here we have two more. Here in our code we have given it as inputs, right? But now since we know how to use buttons, I am going to change these inputs to buttons. Okay, so I'll just use a button tag first, and inside this button tag, let me just add the text submit first, and in my second button I want the text to be reset. I have given two buttons and then I have just specified the text inside. Now for Bootstrap buttons, what should we include? We have to use the btn class along with the btn color. So since it is submit, I am making it green, that is btn success, and for reset I am going to use btn and btn primary. Primary would make it blue color, right? So now if I refresh, you could see our button has changed. Okay, yeah. Now if you look here, there is a gap between this first and the second box, right? So let's just do something about it. Let's just open the CSS which we had already written. Now this submit and reset, these IDs were used when we didn't use buttons, right? So we don't need it anymore. So I'm just removing it. Now if I refresh, you wouldn't find any change because it was no more in use. Okay. Now in this feedback form, I am just going to give a negative margin. Okay, I'm just going to give margin minus 10 pixels just to make it merge together. Okay, so here we have made our feedback form, and also we have redesigned our whole portfolio using Bootstrap, and we have also linked it, right? So when I'm clicking on this, my feedback form is coming, right? Okay, so hope you understood, and this is all I had today. And with this, we come to the end of our week-long web development series where we've learned HTML, CSS, and now Bootstrap. And we have developed our very own portfolio, right? So I hope all of you have enjoyed the sessions and were able to follow along with our teachers. Thank you so much for your patient listening.